The dilemma for Amazon sellers is always to trademark or not to trademark. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing the concept of why you would need to trademark your brand if you are selling on Amazon. So let's get started. Andre, welcome to the channel. I'm so excited to have you here. Before we dive into all of the details regarding trademarking, for anyone that is watching the episode and doesn't know who you are, please introduce yourself.
All right, so my name is Andre Minkov. I'm the founder of Trademark Factory, also known as the Trademark Czar of North America.
Insert picture.
For sure. So I've been in this industry for a long time. Really started because of my dad, who was a famous composer in Russia.
Really?
Yeah. One day he wrote music for 160 movies there. One day I get back from school and I see he's absolutely pissed. And I'm like, what happened? So what happened is he caught a radio station that took one of the songs that he wrote that I actually used to sing with him on stage when I was like 8 years old. And they took that song and turned that into an ad for Samsung without his permission. So he called the radio station and told them that they couldn't just take his music and use it as they pleased. And basically what they said is they told him to sit down, shut up, and be happy that they were making his music even more popular. And if you knew my dad, you'd know right away that it was the very wrong thing to say to him at that time.
I can imagine.
So he said, I'll see you in court. And he slams down the phone. This was the time when you can actually slam down the phone, right? So I'm dating myself a little bit. But so there was 1996 when Russia just transitioned from the socialist intellectual property laws, which basically said that government owned everything and people owned nothing, toward free market copyright laws, which are more in line with what everyone has now. And so there really were no attorneys back in the day who had experience in this kind of stuff. So he came to me and said, and I was still living in Russia back in the day, attending my first law school there. And he's like, do you want to take them to court? I'm like, I have no idea about copyright. He said, well, nobody does. Do you want to give it a shot? And I said, sure, because I've always admired my dad.
Yeah.
And I saw how pissed he was, about this whole situation. Of course, I wanted to help him. I've always, as any son, wanted to gain his approval. And, so that's how the whole thing started. So I sued them. And I had to take my very first case up to the second highest court in the nation. So it took me a couple of years, and eventually we won. And in the process, I got so passionate about helping people who create something to not have it stolen from them, that this has been the only thing I've been doing ever since. So had a long, good career in Russia, had enough of Russia in 2007, moved from Russia to Canada, lived there for 17 years, and then moved to Dubai in 2022. But in 2020, in Canada, had to go through my second law school, did my 3 more years of learning law, and then only to discover that nobody wanted to hire me. Like no Canadian firm wanted to even interview me. I don't know whether this was because I'm Russian, because I'm too old or too beautiful. I don't know what this is about.
I think it's the beauty. I'm sure.
So. Yeah. But no matter what the reason was, I'm like, what do I do now? Like, nobody hires me. And this is when I discovered Rob Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Yeah. And if I could probably start my own firm and see what happens. Because it couldn't get much worse than that, than having nothing, right? And so I did start, and very quickly I realized that there's something missing from that whole equation as a successful business owner.
That's absolutely incredible.
No clients.
Oh.
Without clients, it's kind of hard to build a successful law firm.
Well, clients with problems.
Yes. And so very quickly I realized that I need to do less lawyering and more business building, the marketing, the sales, and all that kind of stuff. And so I was moving toward the entrepreneurial path away from the legal path. And that's how Trademark Factory was born, when I realized that business owners are sick and tired of hourly fees that lawyers charge.
Yeah.
They're sick and tired of being charged for trademarks that have no chance of ever going through just because lawyers can charge them more
Yeah.
to fix the problems in the way. And I'm like, how can we give them something that business owners would actually appreciate? And they appreciate certainty of the result, and they appreciate certainty of the budget. And that's exactly what I came up with Trademark Factory. And I remember in 2013 it was the first time I actually brought this idea to a huge conference. Like if you
Yeah.
can imagine, it was in Dallas, Texas. If you can imagine a room with 10,000 trademark attorneys from around the world, not exaggerating, 10,500 in one room. That's what this conference is all about. So I go there and I tell them, hey, I'm founder of Trademark Factory. We're the only firm that offers trademarking services with a guaranteed result for a guaranteed budget, all of the usual spiel. And they're like, you can't do that. Like, it's impossible. Like, because there's so much uncertainty. How can you give them flat fee? How can you give them money back guarantee? I'm like, watch me. And the coolest thing to me was that after speaking to several hundred of them at that conference, everyone told me I was crazy.
Yeah.
To me, that was the best validation that I have something that the market actually wants. And, all these years later, we're still here. We're still running that model. We've done trademarks for over 400 people, 400 companies, 400 brands, 4,000. So we've done this 4,000. For over 4,000 people, for 4,000 companies. And we have the highest success rate in the industry, 99.3% rate of success, compared to the industry average of 51.2.
What? Oh my.
And to me, that's something, right? That means we're doing something
That's
right.
incredible. Yeah.
Because the biggest thing we're doing, like the secret sauce, is we're helping entrepreneurs not waste their time and money on trademarks that have no chance of ever going through. That's probably the biggest value we provide, aside from the flat fee, the money back guarantee, the advice, all of that stuff, But helping them not get into a 3-year process that ends up in failure is probably the stuff I'm the most proud of.
That's incredible. What a great story. Thanks, Andre, for sharing that. I'm so blessed to have met you also now that you're here in Dubai. But let's get straight into it. We want to make it as simple for people as possible.
Let's do that.
And let's think about like a three-step framework, which I thought about just a few minutes actually before sitting down for this interview. And I thought, number one, we're going to talk about why, how, and don't. I couldn't find something that starts with a W for the last thing. So let's get started with why. So as you know, we're strategically speaking for anyone who's an Amazon seller.
Right.
Why would you need a trademark if you're an Amazon seller? You've worked with thousands of brands that sell on Amazon, off Amazon. Why would you need it?
So not everyone would. It really boils down to one simple question. Well, two simple questions. The first simple question is, are you planning to still be around selling products on Amazon 2-3 years from now under that same brand? If the answer is no, you probably don't need a trademark, because trademarking is a long process. So if all you're doing is you're just trying to, see if
flip
it
a
works,
product,
flip a product, you probably don't want to go through this whole thing, because it doesn't matter, right? It only starts mattering if you're planning long-term for this to be recognized under this brand.
Yeah.
And the second question you want to ask yourself is, assuming you do want to play the long game, if everything goes as well as you hope it will, right? Your store gets more and more clicks, more and more conversions, like you get more and more recognition. So you know everything is working perfectly, like as you've planned. If you're there, ask yourself the question: does the brand help you at all?
Yeah.
Right? Is the brand doing any work for you?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, I suggest you go back to the drawing board, come up with a better brand, because the brand should do the work for you. Like, really, there's 4 levers that a business can pull in order to become successful, whether you're starting a business in your mom's garage or you're a $1 trillion company. There's just 4 levers. One is capital.
Yeah.
right? If you have access to a lot of money, it's going to be easier for you to build a successful business. If you have no money, if you're running it off your credit card, it's going to be harder. The second lever is you have a viral product or a service. So if everyone just wants to buy it anyway, right, you have to do less work, advertising, convincing, like your conversion, like Dubai chocolate, perfect example, right? Everyone wants to buy it, and there's some, all the knockoffs.
All the knockoffs, all of the, like yesterday I was in a Dunkin' Donuts. Even they're doing like these donuts. It's Starbucks, everywhere you go. Yeah, it's insane.
So the product,
So,
everyone wants it already.
Right?
And for most of us...
You just need to provide it,
Yeah, and for most of us, we don't have a viral product or a service, right? It's
not to that point.
Not to that point, exactly. So, right? So it's all a matter of degree. So the second lever is how viral is your product or service. The third lever is your hard work and hard work of your team.
Yeah.
Right. If you have a great team, everyone's competent, everyone knows what they're doing, and everyone's working 15 hours a day, you're probably going to get further ahead compared to if you have you and your assistant that barely speaks your language, and you're all working from your beach 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
Right. So that's another. And the fourth one is your brand. Is your brand recognition. So here's a catchphrase. If your brand is not working for you, you're working too hard. Because think about it. If you go,
I am.
If you go to a supermarket, and you need toothpaste or you need ketchup, how much thinking goes into your decision?
Not
you
a
just
lot.
go to the aisle and you pick up the one that you've always been buying. That's the power of the brand. It's the same thing happens on Amazon. Like, I'm going to give you an example. I love buying tech stuff, like cables for devices and stuff like this. So a few years ago, well, I don't know how many years exactly ago, I came to cables done by Ugreen.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of them before, but the cable was very good. So guess what's happening now? When I need a new USB thingy, a new cable, I check Ugreen. I have no idea if they're better than than the competition. I just know that they're good.
Yeah.
That's how the brand works.
Correct.
And they're
It's a
really big on
perfect
Amazon.
example, by the way. That's a perfect example.
And you'll notice that brands like this, they're all trademarked. Because they know the value of the brand, because they know exactly how the audience buys their stuff, right? They look for the name. And to them, the brand does half the work of the of growth. So going back to your question, right? If you don't think that you will ever have, even in the best case scenario, a brand that matters to people, maybe you're building something wrong.
Yeah.
Right? You need to come up with a brand. It doesn't really matter. Like the name Ugreen
doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't matter. It's not about coming up with the smartest name, the cutest name, like Apple. Like it's a name.
Exactly.
The reason it's valuable is because of all the goodwill they built around that. But the reason they own it is because the only way to legally own your brand is by getting it trademarked, right? Getting a domain name doesn't help. Incorporating your company doesn't work. Getting an LLC doesn't work. Setting up a Facebook account, setting up an Amazon store, none of that works. The only way to legally own your brand is by getting it trademarked. And really, if you don't have your brand trademarked, it's not only that you don't own your brand, you don't have a brand. Because having a brand means you can legally go to a copycat that uses your brand to sell their stuff and say, stop this. This is mine, right? And the only way you can do that is with a trademark. I guess that's why we're having this conversation.
Maybe. Before I move on to the next step, which is how, and we get into the details of how to trademark, one thing that I wanna point out and highlight, because a lot of sellers tend to ask this. Can you trademark a brand? You're quite knowledgeable. Let me give you a little bit of a context. I can trademark my brand, for example, in the US, but use that trademark for Amazon on a different marketplace. So let's say I trademark my brand in the US and I use that trademark registration in the UAE. However, it means I can't enforce it, but I can get the if you like, the benefits of having a trademarked brand on Amazon, which gives you like additional power and content. So in that case, if that were the case, would you suggest for somebody that's starting out to trademark locally where they are about to sell? So if I'm selling in the UAE, should you preferably register a trademark in the UAE, or can you go like the international route because it's a little bit faster, believe it or not, and it's a little bit more cost effective?
All right. So first, let's dispel the common myth.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a global trademark.
Yes, of course. Unless you're like a big brand where you
Even
register
then-
in each and every country.
Even
technically.
then, as you said, you
Yeah.
register in every single country,
yeah.
but there's no such thing as
That
one
covers the whole
trademark
world.
that
Yeah.
covers the whole
Perfect.
world.
Yeah. Perfectly
And
said.
a lot of companies can't get their brand trademarked everywhere. The perfect example is Burger King, who couldn't get Burger King trademarked in Australia because someone else already did. So in Australia, Burger King is known as the Hungry Jacks. So if you
yeah.
didn't know, Google that. But so in most of us, like normal people who don't have extra $1 million just for trademarking purposes, we'd have to pick and choose. And my usual framework of deciding how to do that has 4 steps. One is you start with your home country, where the company is incorporated,
Yeah.
where you're from. That gives you a lot of leverage into using the international trademarking mechanisms that you wouldn't have if you don't have a trademark in your home country.
Yeah.
The second layer is countries where you plan to have a lot of revenue from. So not today, like it doesn't matter how much you're selling there today. Again, think 2-3 years from now. Are you planning to have a lot of revenue coming from people in US,
UK,
in Canada, in whatever,
Yeah.
in Zanzibar?
Yeah,
And really that's how you decide. Because, and to me, the magic number is 30K a year.
Okay.
It's not a massive number,
No.
but it's significant
It's worthwhile,
enough
yeah.
to justify the legal stuff. So if your answer is, well, we're probably going to get at least 30K from Americans, get a trademark in US. We're probably not going to get anywhere near that in, I don't know, Angola.
Yeah.
Don't get a trademark there.
Got it.
Right?
Got it.
The third layer is where you actually have lots of targeted expenses. So if you have a branch, if you have headquarters, if you have an office, if you
Even if it's just like an office for employees or team members or something like
if
that.
you
Yeah.
target your ads to a specific country,
Yeah.
and you spend at least $5,000 a year to a specific country, get a trademark there, right? And lastly, if
So you're sorry to cut you off, but it's because you want to protect yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so because again, the point is you don't want to end up in a situation when you're trying to continue to grow and someone else trademarks your brand.
The
and
Burger King
sues-
situation. Yeah.
And sues you
For using it. Yeah.
for forcing you to change the name
Yeah.
or, pay them money. Like, you don't want to be in that situation. You have other things to do. You have
Yeah.
business to grow.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to be feeding lawyers, right? And so the
Poor
fourth
thing.
the fourth layer is if you actually physically make your own products overseas, you want to get a trademark in the country of the factory. So I'm going to give you a horror story that I've told on more occasions than one, but to me it's just so mind-blowing that I keep sharing it. So there's a company in US, I can't give you the name, but they make e-bikes.
Okay.
Right, electric bikes, company in Texas. So they found a factory in China, to make their bikes.
Yeah.
They paid the factory made the bikes. The factory put the bikes in a big container. They put the container on the ship.
Yeah.
The ship is about to leave the Chinese port when a delegation of police comes on board of the ship and saying, we're here to arrest this container because we've been told that this container contains electric bikes marked with a trademark that's owned by our Chinese client.
No.
And so the captain of the ship goes like, I gotta leave. Take this container, whatever you want. We go. So he calls the captain calls the factory, the Chinese factory guy said,
Just
yeah,
get it off. Yeah.
right. We're leaving without. the Chinese factory calls the Texas guy
Yeah.
and says, we have a little bit of a problem. Like
Little bit.
yeah, a little bit. And so the guy in Texas sits there and realizes that there's no way to win this because he's lost a huge amount of money making those bikes, right? So what do you do now? Do you try to rebrand them? Do you just let them be confiscated?
Yeah.
Do you try to pay off the Chinese guy who trademarked this without his knowledge? Well, obviously, it wasn't a coincidence that all of this happened. Probably the Chinese factory had a little bit of a leakage of information for this to happen. But no matter what, there's no way to just walk away clean.
Yeah.
Even if you sue, good luck suing in China, suing Chinese factory and Chinese ship in China, right? Good luck with that. And so really the only solution that there was that would have been a winning situation was, can you guess what?
Just let it go?
No.
What did he do? Did he
get on a
rebrand?
time machine
Oh, yeah.
and go back at least one day before those other guys file their trademark in China, right? I mean, I'm making light of the situation, but in reality, like imagine being that guy in Texas who just lost hundreds of thousands of dollars of not being able to sell those bikes.
Yeah.
And like, what do? It was, not the extra money that he had. So if you are actually making your own products or have your products with your brand made for you, so that's your fourth
Learn from that mistake. Yeah.
level of defense.
Yeah. Andre, one additional question, because I get a lot of people, obviously we work with a lot of small new entrepreneurs on the Amazon platform, and a lot of them are doing a private label. They're using brands that they haven't trademarked yet because, like you said, it could be that they're just starting out or they're just testing the product. I constantly get the question, is this illegal? Like, if I do my due diligence, I know the brand that I'm using is not trademarked by anyone else. Am I breaking any laws?
Okay, that's a great question. First of all, how do you know? Because you simply running a simple search is not often
Enough.
Yeah. Because like that's the reason why we have 99.3% rate of success compared to 51.2 average, because we don't just do a simple search.
Yeah.
Because most free trademark search engines that are out there's tons of them that most people use. If you go and type in Microsoft Software Solutions as your brand, and you tell them, we're just going to sell some software.
Yeah.
Those search engines are going to tell you that the brand is available.
Interesting.
Because
never heard of it before.
because Microsoft never bothered to trademark Microsoft Software Solutions, right? And that's not how trademarks work.
Exactly.
That's how domain names work. You get a brand, you add some stuff to it, you become the Microsoft, or you can replace I's with ones and O's with zeros, and suddenly you got a name you can get a domain name for.
Yeah.
But that's not how trademarks work. Trademarks work with lookalikes, with sound-alikes, with mean-alikes, with synonyms, with added suffixes, removed stuff. And so when we do a search, there's like a whole list of things we'll look at. And there's also a lot of absolute grounds for why your trademark can be not trademarkable, like generic, the descriptive, and all of those. We have a list of those for like 27 positions that we check. So to your question, assuming you're actually in the clear, you actually came up with a totally unique brand that's not stepping on anyone's toes. There's no law that says you have to have a trademark in order to sell it. The real question is, if you bothered to come up with an actually unique brand, there's a reason you did that. No, seriously, because I mean, you took the time to come up with something to identify you in the marketplace. You didn't want to just say, whatever the name is, let's just have a random combination of 15 characters and say that's our brand. Right? Just to test the waters to see if people like this. You didn't do that. You actually spent your
time and effort,
mental energy went into like, what would be a better name for this stuff? if you did that, it kind of gives me an idea that you care.
Yeah.
And if you care, why don't you care enough to actually own it?
Got it.
Right? So I'm going to give you an example that has nothing to do with Amazon. It
No.
was a few years before Amazon started, 1892.
Yeah, just a few years.
A few years. There's this small company that was making drinks.
Uh-huh.
They were selling 9 drinks a day. Nine
Okay.
drinks a day, nine glasses a day, right?
Okay.
It's called Coca-Cola.
Okay.
They filed their trademark in 1892,
Really?
same
Wow.
year. And I bet you there were a lot of people who were laughing at them
Like what
and
for?
saying like,
Yeah.
you guys, you're the nothing burger. You
Yeah.
sell stupid water,
Yeah.
sugar water.
Yeah.
Why did you waste the
Yeah.
money
Yeah. Yeah.
on lawyers to do your trademark when you could have done, marketing, or you could have done whatever the hell
Yeah.
they needed to do? Like, why would you do that? Nobody's laughing now when
Yes,
their brand is
certainly.
worth $80 billion.
Certainly.
Just the brand itself, not the bottles, not the factories, not the rest. The brand itself,
Yeah.
$80 billion freaking dollars,
Yeah.
right? So to me, that investment that they made
Mm-hmm.
in 1892 was a huge leap of faith. But they knew that if they are to build whatever they were dreaming of, they needed to own the brand
Mm-hmm.
because the brand is everything. It's not about the sugar water, right? So they did it early on. So to your question is, if you actually plan to be successful, to actually get somewhere with your brand, take that little leap of faith, because trademarks, I mean, they cost a little bit of money, but they don't cost prohibitively a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, and you only need one brand to cover all your products. So do that. Or, if you're like, well, who cares about the brand, then just be honest with yourself and tell yourself that the brand doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
Perfect. Let's jump to the second layer of what we want to discuss,
Hmm.
and let's go into the specifics of how.
Okay.
If I were to, or if you wanted to break down to someone with no knowledge of trademarking, how do you go about trademarking, or what are the steps in order to get to a trademark? Don't talk about the mistakes, because we're going to be talking about the mistakes in the third layer. Huh?
Yeah.
So how does somebody trademark? I want to have a brand. I want to trademark it. I come to Trademark Factory. What are the steps?
Well, that's the first step. You go to
Yes.
trademarkfactory.com and you get started with us. But in all seriousness, like if you want a theoretical
Is Trademark
answer,
Factory trademarked?
of course, that was the first thing we did.
Of course it is, yeah.
Like that was the first thing we did before we even started selling any products or services. Because I mean,
Of course, yeah.
but and by the way, I did it when I barely had any money. Like I ran out
There
of
you
money
go.
when Remember that story when I told you that nobody wanted to hire me?
Yeah.
Basically, I spent all the money that I brought with me to Canada in 3 years of law school.
Yeah.
Expecting that I'll be hired.
Yeah.
And so there's
I'm
no
gonna get
money.
I'm going to become a partner in a huge law firm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, yeah.
Yeah.
But I did it because I knew that I couldn't run a trademarking company
Without a trademark, yeah.
a trademark.
Logically.
That's just
Yeah.
stupid. So, but here's the process. First of all, everyone needs to understand that trademarking takes a long time.
Yeah.
It takes about a year and a half in the US on average. It takes about 3-4 years in Canada. In Europe, it takes about a year.
Yeah.
So it's not like a domain name. There's
Mm-hmm.
another difference with domain names. It takes a long freaking time. So if you said,
Yeah.
well, I need to show my investors that I have a trademark brand about 6 months from now, well, you're a year too late,
Yeah.
right? And most people don't realize that. They think,
Mm-hmm.
well, I fill out some form on a website and I get a trademark. The
Yeah.
next day, no, that's not how it works. So the single most important step is that search that we discussed.
Yeah.
And that's the secret sauce behind our success rate, because we
Very thorough search.
it's extremely thorough. About half of the trademarks that people bring to us, we tell them it's not going to work. And, they go through all those stages of, grief, anger,
Denial. There's denial
it
somewhere.
always
Yeah.
starts with
It
denial.
starts with
What do
denial.
you mean? Like,
What do you mean it's different? Yeah.
Like, it's different. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
I have the in front. Like,
I'm writing it with an I and not with a Y.
yeah, and it's all in
Yeah.
in green, and they have it in red. Like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
And so there's some of this, but it always starts there, because if you want to trademark a brand that cannot be trademarked, then no matter how much money you throw at it, you're not going to get it trademarked unless you're Elon Musk and you're just going to buy the companies that own the trademark that blocks you, right? I don't think a lot of your audience.
I don't think a lot of people are Elon Musk money,
right? And so if you're not there, then again, it goes to make sure you're actually in the clear and don't rely on those free databases because, first of all, they only look at identical marks. They don't look at all those other combinations that we look at. But more importantly, well, there's two other things why those databases are a problem. They don't look at absolute grounds for refusal, right? They only check the database. They don't check, is it descriptive? Is it generic? They don't look, is it a name of an individual? Is this, a prohibited identification through like of a flag or a country or whatever? Like there's a long list of those things that cannot be, is this a title of a single work? Like there's so many things that nobody really cares to tell you about. And those databases don't check for that. And the third problem with those databases is that at best, they give you a long list of similar marks that they find. And you are supposed to make a decision. What does it actually mean?
Okay.
Does it make my brand not trademarkable? Does it make my brand trademarkable? What is that?
Yeah.
Right. So we do that. Once you are in the clear, then it's a pretty straightforward checklist. You draft the application, make sure that all the right things go into the application. Which is a lot of entrepreneurs, they treat your trademark, their trademark application as a marketing piece. They start to explain to the trademarks office how amazing their products are.
Yeah.
And that kills the application often. They we're organic, family sourced, blah blah blah. They don't give a shit. What do you sell? Right? And so put the right thing in the application, get it filed with a licensed attorney. That's important because if not, the USPTO has canceled thousands of trademark applications filed improperly through some of the Chinese websites pretending to be legitimate, and USPTO is not having any of that.
Yeah.
So and then. So you filed your application, then you just wait for months. In U.S., it's about 6 months, 6 to 9 months before the examiner gets a chance to look at your application and tell you one of the two things. They're either going to say, your application is just perfect. I love your application. It's so good. And that means
let's
approval.
keep going.
Yeah. Or in 68% of the cases, 2/3, they're going to issue what's called an office action, which is a letter listing what they don't like about your trademark application. It could be a likelihood of confusion with another mark. It could be one of those absolute grounds. And then you have to prove to them that they're wrong or you have to modify something. This is where the real work begins.
Yeah.
And the stuff that Trademark Factory is famous for is what we now call our office action insurance, is when you can prepay a fixed amount and have us deal with all of that stuff no matter what happens. Because I'll be honest with you, when we file trademarks, we don't know what's going to happen. Like we have ideas, we have predictions, but there have been trademarks that we thought were going to go through without any issues that took us many, many, many hours to deal with.
Yeah.
I think our record is 7 years for one client. We sold them our package for a flat fee. With a money back guarantee. 7 freaking years. We spent hundreds of attorney hours on this client. We lost, God knows how much money. But we got his trademark registered because he got the office action insurance. So
he's like, okay, now it's registered. I don't want to sell anything. I don't want to use it. But 7 is a lucky number, so it could be.
I could literally see this guy laughing his pants off every time we'd send him a letter saying, you know what, we got another office action, but don't worry.
We're working on it.
We're working on it. You don't need to pay anything. You're like, great, do that.
Keep going.
Right? And so after all this back and forth, which can be one round, multiple rounds, then your trademark gets approved, gets allowed. If it survives the opposition period, which is relatively uncommon in US and Canada, less than 1% of applications get opposed. Once your trademark gets allowed, you need to show to the government that you're already using your product, and then they're going to give you your trademark registration certificate.
Perfect. Let's move on, because I know we've got a lot of things to talk about, to the don't part of the episode.
Let's do that.
Don't specifically common mistakes that people make, which obviously you talked about a little bit. What are the things that you find are mistakes that people make that could get the trademark rejected? I know you've got a few, but let me go back to something that you were saying. Maybe we didn't really clarify.
Okay.
What does it mean that, my brand, nobody else is using it, but what does it mean look-alike, sound-alike? What on earth is that?
So Microsoft versus Microsoft software solution.
It's very similar.
Or Microsoft, where you replace the I's with ones.
Yeah.
It sounds the same way when you actually pronounce it. It doesn't, So things like that. The misspellings, the translations to other languages. So if you're filing in Canada, you need to check the French translation. If you're filing in the US, you need to check
Don't
the
think
Spanish
that you're
translation.
so smart. Yeah.
Right?
Which is great, because if you think about it, it really means when you do trademark your brand, you're
real
even
protection.
protecting like things that might be similar.
Yes.
So yeah.
And really this boils down to this denial stage, right? The funny thing about this is the way we usually break through to the client is to say, well, imagine you had this trademark and those other guys came after you with their trademark without the.
Yeah.
How would you feel about
Yeah.
that? You'd go to us and say, what can I do? How do I stop them?
Yeah.
That's
same
how
thing.
that's exactly
Yeah.
the same thing. And I'm like, now I get it. Like if you were Microsoft Software Solutions and you built all the reputation and some guy, William Gates, said, well, I want to start Microsoft. You're like, dude, that's my brand, right? It's exactly the same thing, right? So that's what lookalikes, soundalikes really mean, is when you try to put yourself in the shoes of those other guys and say, so because trademarks, unlike every other area of intellectual property, has a dual purpose. Trademarks, they protect the trademark owner against copycats, but they also protect the public against them being duped into buying a fake product because they thought they're buying it from Microsoft and they bought it from Microsoft Software Solutions, right? Or same thing with Dubai chocolate or whatever the thing. The dual purpose of the trademark is so when the courts look at whether there's trademark infringement, they look at it from the perspective of an average consumer, somewhat in a hurry. That's a legal term. Somewhat in a hurry, with an imperfect recollection of the first brand, and they try to put themselves in the shoes of that person and say, when looking at the other brand, will they be likely to think that the two products come from the same source?
Okay.
And if the answer is yes, then the judge goes like, that's trademark infringement.
Okay.
Right? So that's why all the lookalikes, the soundalikes, we can play around all this. But really, if you're like, this is like a guy who barely remembers the first brand, when they see an ad for this product, they're probably going to think it's the same thing. So
Perfect.
that's how it works.
Speaking about Dubai viral chocolate, I think this is also something that we can talk about now. So I had a few friends that were visiting Dubai, and as you know, everyone's like, where can I find this Dubai viral chocolate? I want to take it home. Yeah. And we were like talking about it during dinner, and a friend of mine was saying, oh, like how are other people, because I was saying these chocolates that you're finding in the mall or in supermarkets, that's not from the actual brand that created the chocolate. And the chocolate is not called Dubai viral chocolate. It's just a way of how everyone is calling it.
My wife gets on noon all the time. There's all the different versions. Yeah,
exactly. So she was saying, so I was explaining this to my friend, and she's saying, oh, but of course, the Dubai viral chocolate recipe and the concept of having pistachio in a chocolate, but that's trademarked. And I'm sure the owner of the brand or the brand itself who created it, because it's trademarked, can, protect and can sue all of these people that are copycatting. And I said, that's not how
trademarks work.
Yeah.
Exactly. You can't trademark a recipe. You can't trademark an idea. You can't trademark.
That's not a trademark. Yeah.
Yeah, you can trademark a brand, the name by which And that's exactly, so when people ask me, what's the difference between trademarks,
and a
copyright,
patent,
and patent? Like, I use magic words.
Yeah.
So to me, the magic word for copyright is how, because that's how you express an idea, right? The book you wrote, the song you wrote, right? Just because you wrote a song about a boy meeting a girl doesn't mean that others can't write a song about the other boy meeting another girl, right? It's about the melody, it's about the music,
Yeah.
right? So it's the how you express that idea. It doesn't protect the underlying idea. The magic word for patents is what? Because it's as close as you're going to get to protecting the underlying spark of genius behind the product, whether it's the recipe, if recipes were patentable, how you make the gadget or the method, things like that. The magic word for trademarks is which. Because I'm going to bring you back to this idea of toothpaste. When you go into the supermarket and you see a whole aisle with toothpaste, it's the same freaking glop.
Yeah.
In tubes.
It's the same recipe.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
But the only way you can tell which one you're going to get is that brand on the packaging. That's the function of a trademark, to tell you that this is your toothpaste and this is someone else's toothpaste.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the function of a trademark. So with going back to the chocolate, you can protect the brand. So if someone actually cares about getting the chocolate from company whatever, that's how they do it. But it's not about it's not about protecting the recipe itself.
Exactly. So that's a patent. So that's something completely different. What is one last common mistake that you see people make in terms of trademarking?
Look, I think we've covered it.
Yeah.
So to me, the main ones are not doing it at all, doing it too late, and doing it incorrectly. Doing it incorrectly.
Yeah.
Right. Not doing it at all means, you didn't see the value. Doing it too late is another big problem because here's the thing, a lot of entrepreneurs assume that their entrepreneurial journey will look about a bit like this. So
straight line.
First, straight line, just barely hovering over the ground, where they're working hard, they're grinding, it's hard, they're not making any money.
The hustle. Yeah.
Then something happens, and there's a hockey stick, right? Like they're swimming in money, and everything is just amazing. And now they have all the money in the world to deal with all the problems, and they assume that as this happens, nobody cares about their brand. Yeah. As the hockey stick happens, then by the time somebody cares, they'll have the money to deal with that.
Yeah.
That's not how real world works.
Exactly.
Because really how it works is you got a much less steep of a climb. And
so many ups and downs in between.
Yes,
yeah.
And by the time you get there, someone will have seen the value of your brand.
Yeah.
And you don't yet make the money that you hoped to solve the problem. Like, I'm going to give you an example. To me, it's just a really... it speaks to me because I use their services all the time. 11 Labs, which is an amazing AI startup. They're one of the best in what they do. And they realized, hey, we're building something amazing. We've got some investor money. Let's trademark this stuff. And so they filed their trademark, only to find out that someone else filed for this exact same trademark a few days before. And now their trademark is denied.
Yeah.
And they're put in a situation like, what do we do? It's too late to rebrand.
Yeah.
Because everyone knows us under this. We don't want to pay this guy because he's... Well, again, I don't know. Maybe they stole the brand from him.
Maybe.
I don't think so.
But if they did, they should have trademarked it.
Right? But now they're put in a situation when instead of paying, like, if you went with Trademark Factory with our top package, which really we're famous for, you're paying $2,500 plus the government fees.
Yeah.
Right? So $3,000 around that with the government fees.
Yeah.
Right? They could have done it and not have any of this problem materialize if they filed the trademark a few days before.
Yeah.
Now, dealing with this is going to cost them probably $100K plus.
Yeah.
Just out of nowhere for nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So
think ahead.
Waiting too long. You have to be the first person to realize the value of your brand.
Yeah. That's That's absolutely
And so
marvelous.
I'm just going to I'm going to paint a picture with my hands. I'm going to paint a chart with my hands if I can, right? So there's this light bulb moment when you first realize that, hey, that's the brand I want to use.
Yeah.
At this very moment, the value of your brand is zero
Yes.
because it's just in your head. You don't have any products under this brand. You don't have any services under this brand. It's just a thought, right? So maybe potential value is massive, but the actual value is zero. This is also the most trademarkable your brand will ever be. Because again, nobody knows it. It might not be trademarkable already, but if it is, it's not going to get more trademarkable.
Yeah.
Right? So like this one line in the history, okay? And then as the time goes on, as you start making moves, right? You print out business cards, you put together a website, you start putting out videos on YouTube, whatever you do. You go to trade shows, you tell people, hey, we got this amazing product. You know, you set up at the Amazon store and you start sending ad money to this, right? As time goes on, the value of your brand goes up because more people know about you under that brand. Hopefully you're doing some things right, right? Not all of the stuff that you sell ends up with a refund because it's garbage, right? So the value goes up and the trademarkability goes down because even if there was perfectly clear then, the risk goes up that someone else will do what the 11 Labs people are facing. And so it goes like this.
Yeah.
Right? The value goes up, registrability goes down, and at some point the gap becomes so big that you're just done.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about it. Like imagine if I don't know. Imagine if Coca-Cola was not trademarked today. It'd be a pretty good business for someone to go and trademark that. Right? Because out of thin air, they pay a little bit of money, they get a brand that's worth a lot of money. Right? It's just stupid not to use this, right? So that's why every brand that knows what they're doing, right? Apple would never launch a product until they secured trademark rights. And the way they do it is because they want to keep secret. So they file under an obscure name in some obscure jurisdiction, some island country, for a brand. And then they make the announcement. Yeah. And then they assign that trademark to Apple.
Okay.
And then they file in the US and Canada and everywhere else. Because to them, they understand that it's just there's no reason in the world to spend $1 out of your pocket or a minute out of your life building a brand you don't own. Yeah. So, if there's one big mistake is just doing this. Promoting a brand, investing in promoting a brand you don't own. And then the other thing is most people grossly overestimate their degree of understanding how trademarks work. They think it's really simple. They think it's like, anyone can do it. You just fill out the form.
Yeah, and it's done. Yeah.
Everyone can fill out the form. Like a monkey can fill out the form. But there's a statistic that for self-filed trademark applications, the rejection rate is 81%. 4 out of 5 get rejected. So if you want to take that gamble, sure. The biggest problem with that, it takes a long time. So it's not like you do something stupid and immediately it tells you have a problem, like you're playing a game, right? You do something and you only find out if you did a good job 9 months from now. And probably you're not going to just sit on your butt and do nothing during the 9 months. You're going to spend money promoting that stuff, and then what? So to me, that's the biggest mistake.
Andre, perfect. If somebody wants to reach out to you, how can they find a little bit more information about Trademark Factory?
Trademarkfactory.com is really the easiest way to connect. We've got multiple ways you can get started. You can do it on your own. Getting started on your own. We don't want you to file trademarks on your own because you're not going to get there. But so you can do the self-checkout thing, but you're going to get a lot more value by getting on a free call with one of our advisors. And their role is not to just hard sell you into, hey, you need a trademark now, get a trademark. No. Their role is to actually help you figure out what to start with, what countries do you need to start with, a name, with a logo, with a like how because a
Just
lot of
demystifying
all
the
of
whole
those
thing.
questions that everyone has, they're experts, and they're going to be able to help. So trademarkfactory.com, and if you just want more education about trademarks, YouTube channel Trademark Factory. I've posted over 1,000 videos there. If you have
Yes,
a
you
question about trademarks, I've probably answered it more than once.
Perfect. Andre, thank you so much for being on the channel and for all of the information. And I hope to see you soon.
Thanks for having me.